Hello, partners. In this report, we're going to go back to one of our original formats, honoring great American presidents. My writer and researcher, Dennis Daly, this time around, takes us to fairly modern times. Our honoree was raised in the lap of luxury. His parents and other family members thought of themselves as if they were the American version of the lords and ladies of Europe. Yeah, you know this guy from history, but it's going to be fun as we go through it. He never had to bathe himself until he was 10 years old. He had private tutors and the finest clothing money could buy. You'd think that such a lucky young man would be happy, but it wasn't that way. His dad was a heavy drinker and didn't spend much time with his only child. And wait, to make matters worse, FDR's mother was one of the most domineering and possessive mothers of all time. If they ever made a sitcom about FDR's mother, Sarah Roosevelt, she would be played by Margaret Hamilton. You may remember her. She played the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz. Imagine wanting them other to play that. Well, anyway, when FDR was old enough to go away to boarding school, he was so different, he was looked upon as an outsider wherever he went. His drunken father never played sports with FDR. The first time Franklin Roosevelt ever picked up a baseball was when he helped his team in college. His classmates felt he'd be a loner all his life. I said, I don't think he'll ever amount to anything. It's too different from anybody. Well, then a miracle walked into his life. She was a distant cousin. Her name was Eleanor Roosevelt. FDR finally had someone to focus on, to be good to, and what is a little known part of history, to learn from. Before they met, Eleanor was involved with a group helping the poor in the New York City's slums. She took FDR with her to the slums one day so he could see what was happening, and he was flabbergasted. He had never seen poverty. Well, years later, after he got polio, he spent months at the Warm Springs Spa in Georgia and drove a hand-controlled car into the poorest parts of rural Georgia. There he saw people with no education, nothing, but they were living in poverty, no education. Eleanor and a crafty newspaper man named Louis Howe kept his memory alive in New York state politics. Her determined efforts and Louis Howe's knowledge of politics made it possible for FDR to become president. FDR, I remember him. During his second day in office, FDR asked for radio time on all the networks. He told the nation he was going to close the banks in order to save the nation's financial system. Now, during his years in office, FDR spoke on radio many times. One historian noted that FDR did not speak down to people, he spoke to them. He called everyone my friends. No president had ever done that before. In many ways, it was FDR's use of radio that saved the nation during the Great Depression and the Second World War. His powerful voice hid the fact that he had polio and couldn't even walk. He was a great man. Certainly he had flaws, but were it not for FDR, I might be doing this report in German instead of English. Partners, I want to leave you with a quote from one of the great historians named David Grubin. He wrote, on March the 4th, 1933, a man could not walk, would begin to lead a crippled nation. Wow. FDR, the radio president. By the way, During the years FDR was in office, many people had a photograph of him beside the radio so they could look at him during his fireside chats. Yes, FDR had fireside chats with people. These were, of course, the days before television. Okay, partners, you know the drill. Look up there. The three boxes, one farthest to the right, has the red X. Click that one, nothing more, and you'll return immediately to the report page to read the rest of this week's comments. Dennis, thank you for helping me remember President Roosevelt. I remember his great line, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Go get 'em, Tiger!